Gary, let me start with a 12-part question.
Good.
I think everyone here is familiar with the fine work on the small screen and the big screen that Garry Marshall has brought us. And he's generously, along with his daughter, incorporated many wonderful anecdotes and stories. The book is called My Happy Days in Hollywood. Here's what I wanted to start with almost thematically. If you are successful in show business, it intensifies who you already are. If you're a jerk, it makes you a bigger jerk. If you're and my thought about you is if you're a mensch, it makes you a bigger mensch. Okay. But do you think that's true in the experiences? Is it?
Well, you know, celebrity is a strange thing. You choose, and sometimes you don't choose to get in it. It's a big range. You know, it's celebrity's kind of between. One end is J.D. Salinger, and the other end is Lindsay Lohan. And so in the middle is where I've always tried to go, but it does enhance you, because whatever you do, everybody knows. It didn't used to be that when I started. You know, everybody worried about credit when I first. You didn't get credit, right? You got credit, you didn't. But the industry is very strange that way. They know who did what. You know, the people who hire and give you money know who did it. The public can say, well, they created that, they created that. So I think it's a fair business that way. And many people don't talk about show business fair. But it does finally, like television, say, television is for people who have to have by 2 weeks your personality comes out. And it's not just acting, it's personality to be a TV star. But it's all because that's what people are like looking for to get to know you.
Right.
The studio system in the old days, nobody knew anybody. There were mysteries. Now everybody knows everybody's mystery. So you better try to not to be nice.
In the book you write about it, the show after Happy Days, or a spin-off from Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley.
Yes, I remember that.
With your own sister Penny Marshall.
Yeah.
And you're honest, and you say that Penny and Cindy Williams were arguably reluctant and maybe not the best TV stars. Not in terms of their performance, but in terms of their handling of their.
Well, my sister Penny can give you a headache. Happy Days is my best experience with the show. Laverne and Shirley was one of my worst because the girls were great, but they weren't sure. See, Happy Days, it's a strange thing again, who you are. Happy Days, the kids felt, we deserve this job. We're working. We worked hard. We went to school. We learned the job. Laverne and Shirley, a lot of them didn't think, well, maybe do we deserve this? Do we deserve to be a hit? Their hair was always wrong. Penny didn't like her hair. Cindy didn't like her hair. Cindy didn't like Penny's hair. Penny didn't like Cindy's hair. It made you crazy altogether. But it you know, when you grow up, you can't, you know, I can't call my mother and say, Penny's making me crazy, Mom. Well, they didn't love writers in those days, Penny and Cindy, and I said, you know, they write, oh, well, they don't quite get it. I said, all right, we fixed it, we'll meet tomorrow, we'll fix the rest. And I would go home and Penny would follow me. You know, you can't lie to your sister where you live. So she would follow me home, and my wife would say, there's Penny at the gate again, she's climbing over here. Is she coming to dinner, or just going to write on the tablecloth and write jokes for tomorrow? I said, well, give her something to eat. So this happened, and we did 8 years of this, and they were a caution, and they worked very well. And Lenny and Squiggy were like a male version of them. They didn't like their hair, they didn't like this trailer, they didn't like this. And that's how we got, but what was the saving grace of it all. Friday night, when that audience came in, nobody was better. Penny and Cindy just rose, and they never had any stunt people. They did all the falling and knocking around, and they always came through show 9. And that's why the show ran for 8 years. And I truly think, you know, they were both two of the best female comics. I wrote for Lucy for 3 years, so everything Lucy taught me, I taught Penny and Cindy. And so it really came out well, and, you know, Penny and I are still very close, even today.
A lot of people discovered the teenage Ron Howard, we knew him from Andy and Mayberry.
Yes.
But you met Ron Howard way before when he was a kid.
Well, you know, I was on the same lot as him. He was doing Andy Griffith, and I was doing Hey Landlord. Listen to the applause. One! Thank you. Hey Landlord was 99th in the ratings, right?
But there were only 80 shows.
Well, there was 100. It was 100 CBS News. It was a different era. But 99th, Hey Landlord was. But we lasted 34 episodes. So we all learned. We had great, all the writers that came up through Hey Landlord because we were on 34 episodes. So you learn to go get depressed, and you can't go home and say, honey, I'm 99. This is not a cause to have a celebration. But you say, all right, maybe I'll do better next time. But that was a part of creating until you created something that worked out. 11 seasons. Longer than...
And as we're talking now, it's probably running somewhere.
Part of the happy conception of Happy Days was the rerun. The word rerun was kind of a new word.
Right.
It just paid you for the summer, and that was it. But then they kept rerunning. So part of Paramount wanted me to create a show where nostalgia. It was Walton's was the only nostalgia. They wanted a show that would run, and in reruns look not old. If you saw some of the shows, Mary Tyler Moore, a very short skirt, it got mixed up what year it was. But Happy Days looked old when you started. Look, it's 50s, leave it alone. But they originally wanted me to do a show, there was a few people as old as me. I Remember Mama was a show, a lovely show. But they said, make that. And I said, it's about Norwegians or something. I don't know from Norway. I'm from the Bronx. There was nobody in my neighborhood called Laws. You know, a lot of Laws there. You know, there was Lefty, there was Al Jello, there was no Laws. But I said, how about, it was about the 30s. And I said, I was not born really yet. How about the 50s will be good? And they said, well, 50s, try it. And we made Happy Days in the 50s, just like I wanted, with the 50s look. And the network said, no, we're not buying that. Who wants to see that? But if you stay around long enough, that's the other thing I learned, suddenly came American Graffiti with George Lucas, and I had Ron Howard off the pilot I had made that didn't sell, and then a wonderful show called Grease hit Broadway, and there they said, you know, television still is a little derivative, and somebody said at ABC, don't we have one of those things, those 50s, did we make that once? And they looked at it, and they put it on, and we were back on. See, they had a wonderful system also in those days. They had a show called Love American Style.
It was a backdoor pilot for Love American Style.
So any pilot that you made that was no good, they didn't throw it away. They put it on Love American Style. Whatever the pilot was about, love in the new neighbor, love in the happy days, they put it on there. Love in the pirates, love in the this. Any show they could dump on Love American Style. And it stayed a while. But now they don't do that. They just cancel it.
So with that,
then it became a hit.
Right of this alchemy, it's like it all came together.
Well, it was coming together pretty good, and a lot of times the show evolved. So I had, I wanted it pretty like the 50s, and we did one camera, and it was like a little movie each week, but it was too expensive to do that, and then they wanted an audience, because that was what was about it. And then I had a character from my neighborhood, that in my neighborhood in the Bronx, either you hit somebody in the head, or you hit a ball hard, or you dressed well.
What did you do?
Well, I did none of the three, particularly. I invented the fourth one would be funny. Both, I tried it, Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren, both came from my neighborhood, and I said Ralph Lauren's name at the time was Lifshitz, but he adjusted. Nobody wanted to buy Polo by Lifshitz. So they quickly changed it to Lauren, and he became a sensation. And I figured humor might be a way, so that's why I ended up going that way.
A character, my suspicion is you're going to see Fonzie.
Well, one of the guys the guys who you were most frightened of, who would hit you in the head, were the guys who never spoke. They didn't say. So I really created a character called Fonzie, who basically said, whoa and hey, which is easy to write. You know, it's a hard writing job. You know, but suddenly, as it unveiled and evolved, they liked him. They wanted him to say more. And we wrote more and more, and Henry was a wonderful actor. Not what I pictured. I pictured a very tall, kind of tough Italian guy, and was this shorter guy who went to Yale, and it's not my idea, Fonzie. And I remember my sister and Tom Miller, who was one of my mentors, said, put the jacket on, put the jacket on. So we put the leather jacket, and suddenly Henry Winkler became Fonzie, just became.
And then became, arguably, you know, among the most popular TV characters and TV stars ever.
Yeah, well, he was on everybody's pajamas and coffee cups. To the point which I discussed in the book, they wanted to change their show from Happy Days and call it Fonzie. But we kind of, you know, I'm not sure it's just not news, but you know, talent and being a nice fella don't often go together. You know, nice human beings and talent is not always a match. But it matched with Henry Winkler.
We were talking about this before we came out. He the nicest guy alive.
True, and he was then. He was still coming up, but he was nice, and we said that every project I do, I have a softball team or some kind of team, and I talk on the field. And I remember we were in the dugout, and Ron, Henry, and me, and we said, Henry, they want to call it Fonzie. Now we're throwing the ball back and forth. Henry's just learning to pitch. Me and Ron are. And we said, they're calling it Fonzie. What do you think of that? And he says, I don't know. I said, well, I got to quit. And I think Ron's going to quit. And, you know, when you want to be alone, he says, I love Happy Days. It's not a good time as Fonzie. I want to be Fonzie. It was Ron's show. And we discussed it. But dugout, and somebody said, play ball, we went, never mentioned again, that was it. So you got to deal with that.
The phrase that we all use now, jump the shark.
What a phrase, yes, I heard that one.
And how did that come? I mean, that wasn't a conscious thing, it sort of came after the fact, I suppose.
Yeah, I didn't say, ooh, I'll have a phrase to me. Mom was a good word. I didn't want to top it. It just was one of those things that, it was my fault. I take all the credit for such a thing. We had him jump over something and it was a big hit. So I said, well, we should jump over something because you see, you get depressed for a second. They told us we were going to Hawaii. The whole show we were going to shoot in Hawaii. We all got excited. Then they said, you're not shooting in Hawaii. But we wrote these scripts about the water. You go to Malibu, there's a little place, you'll shoot it. I said, what are we going to do here? So I said, got to jump something. So what's in the water? You know, what can we do? And how about a shark? I said, we don't have a shark. Well, you fake it like they did in yours. You make a shark. So that's what we did. And Henry, you know, dutifully jumped over on the water skis, and that was it. It was an episode. Nobody wrote a letter. But then came this thing. The guy said that was when it went downhill, and it became a great phrase. I think it describes it beautifully when the show starts to go. Happy Days ran 4 more years off that, but we don't talk about that yet. Here's the story. Jumping the shark. Over there we go. Fred Fox wrote the episode.
With all this television success, and the movies sort of come calling.
Well, first I had, because sometimes you like to be right, and I had this wonderful show, Odd Couple, great actors. I talked about how the first day on Odd Couple, I was shooting in the streets of New York, so I said, Tony and Jack, here, get the limousine whale, gets a shot ready, and they were in 3 minutes. They both got out of the limousine, and Tony said, I quit, I can't work with him. And Jack said, I wouldn't go near this man, I'm not, we both quit. Not a good way the first day, you know, you say, oh, this didn't work out. But it was because Jack London smoked a lot, and Tony really liked it, made that sound with his nose when he was near smoke. And so what do? You, as a producer, the answer, a lot of times a producer has to throw money at something to solve it. The producers who throw the less money get to produce again. So I said, well, I'll solve the problem. Let's get another limo. And they'll each have their own limo. And they did. And Tony, of course, said, now, Garry, you sure nobody ever smoked in this limousine? I said, no. One person chewed gum once, but otherwise, nobody. I lied. I didn't know what I was talking about. But he went in, and that's so that went on, and then Happy Days were Blessing, and then, but I kept saying that hip humor, kind of Saturday Night Live kind of humor, would work at 8 o'clock at night. And they said, no, it won't. You can't do that. There's children or something. I said, no, I don't mean dirty humor. I'm talking about you, until I got Robin Williams and...
Who was a street performer.
Yes, his credit was he pantomimed in the street and passed the hat. That's what we hired. My sister Ronnie, I said, that's the guy I'm going to hire? A man who passes the hat? And she says, it's an awful full hat. He passed it. And I remember we had John Biner, and somebody remarked, and if you watch the very early Malcolm Indy when he appeared on Happy Days, his costume didn't fit, because it was made for John Biner, who just before... 3 days before he couldn't make it, and it didn't work out, and he didn't want to do it, and Robin came in, and he was great, but his suit doesn't fit. But I always tell one great story again. It's all about things go wrong, and adjusting, and stand up a minute. The average age of the cameraman at Paramount was like 82 or 83. They stood like this. This was Sam, and there was another one, Sam was my favorite. Sam would be there. So I said, okay, here comes Robin. All right, ready, action. So Robin goes running around. He does what's in the script. He ad-libs, he jumps, he hops and pulls and jumps all around. And I yelled, cut! And I said, did you get that, Sam? And Sam said, he never came by here. I said, Sam, the man is a genius. He said, if he's such a genius, he could hit the mark right there. And be on the damn camera. That's what he's going to do. Robin adjusted. I hired a 4th camera. That's what we did. But that's what you're going to adjust. You can say, oh, it's going to go perfect. And when it doesn't, you go, you got to come up with it. But he was a big factor for me in making that kind of humor work at 8 o'clock.
And did you have an appetite then? Because I think there's always been this thought, I think these lines don't necessarily exist anymore. You know, TV is this and movies are this.
Oh yeah, I was big.
Right.
They didn't like television people, nobody crossed over.
But you crossed over.
I crossed, now they're begging to cross anywhere. Oh boy, anywhere, what do you got? Internet, good, YouTube, big stuff. But then it was not, so we knew it was going to be hard, so we kind of crossed over together. Because we're all interested, was myself, my sister Penny, Jim Brooks, who did Turn to Endearment, Rob Reiner, and Ron Howard. Ron being the most experienced, the best. His first picture I was in. Guess what I played? I only played a gangster film. But he said,
Isn't that Night Shift?
No, it was before that. Eat My Dust.
Right.
Something. I don't know. I was a gangster. He directed me, and then after he said, cut. He said, how'd I do? I said, you're not supposed to say that to the actor. You did fine. Wow, I was so moved the way you did it. So we went on. But we all went together and decided we'd try it. We were not welcome. And they didn't greet us. And Jim Brooks always talked about when he first was directing a movie there, he said there was a lot of eye-rolling time where they'd say to him, that's what you want to do, Jim, huh? You want to make that shot? Okay, he wants to make that shot. Look at who's going to make this shot. And they said the same thing to Penny and I, but we all helped each other. We went to each other's early cuts, and you want to hear more applause? My first picture was Young Doctors in Love. 3, 4, but that's how we went in, and I remember I set up a shot. I said, how is the shot? I asked the cinematographer at the time, and he said, looks a lot like the living room of Happy Days. So it was not encouraging. So it was kind of, we all kind of slugged through it, and Jim did brilliantly with Turn to Endearment, and Rob and Penny and I actually still working.
Exactly right.
In the field. So.
And working with huge people. You said in the book, you talk about this theme of fathers.
Yeah.
And maybe not knowing your father super well.
Yeah.
And that people talk about the movies are often, you're communicating personal stuff, whether it's...
Yeah, they always want to hear about it. Well, I tell you, my mother thought the best thing in the world was to entertain somebody. She taught dancing in the basement of our apartment building in the Bronx, and she thought it's nice to make people laugh, and she thought the worst thing in the world was to be bored. She said, never be bored. We were little kids, and she never be bored. And I said one day, Mom, what is boring? And she said, your father. So, that was funny, but my father, on the other hand, was not a funny fellow, and he wasn't there all the time, but he taught us a couple of things that we never forgot. Patty and my sister Ryan and I, he taught us how to be a boss, what a boss has to do. And he said probably one of the things I truly live by, he said, what's going to happen? He says, you're going to have to work with people that you never want to have lunch with. But you've got to work with those people because they'll make your project better. And he says, it's not about lunch. It's about getting your project done and finished. And I have worked with a lot of people I wouldn't have lunch with. But it was good advice, and so we benefited from both our parents in that way.
There's a project that Garry was involved with that you may have heard of called Pretty Woman. And there's a wonderful story in the book, and this idea that producers have to watch the budget and save money. And we all see it now rather blatantly in television and movies, product placement.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit, if you would, about the condom product placement in Pretty Woman.
You do different things in a movie and they give you money. And they come, there's a man in charge of it now. Most
right, yeah.
He comes and he says, if you put in, and he said, if you put in these prophylactics, and why does that noise?
It's the word prophylactic. Go ahead.
They censor your hair.
Yeah.
And they said, if you put in this new prophylactic, we'll give you some money. They'll give us some money, and we did. It's in there. And Julia picks it up and holds it and says, this is the golden one, this is the good one. Now, and we got it. Now, dissolve. Years later, Julia and I are doing Valentine's Day, right? And she takes out the scene, in the plane, she takes out a chapstick, and she holds it up, and the label's here, and she goes like this with the chapstick, and then she said, I'm going to hold it this way. But if you want, I could hold it this way, and you can see the label, and she said, I want $3 million. So she learned, right? Prophylactic, love doing it, Now she knows. So you learn that merchandising does change things, and again, that was one of my turns in my life.
Okay, when you see that phrase, change your life, and Richard Gere had worked some, but not super well known, and Julia Roberts even less so. You make two huge stars, the movie makes buckets of money, and then you tell me sudden Hollywood goes, well gee, he was always a nice guy, now he's a genius.
Well, they say, well, let's let him do another picture, maybe he knows something, but if you read, and so, the picture made $220 million, but they don't always put, it was, they made it for $180 million, so the measure of a hit at the time, on the list of the 15 biggest hits according to budget and making, Pretty Woman was fourth on that list, because Pretty Woman cost $14 million to make. They say $21 million, so it was all in. So $21 million to make. Pretty Woman made $463 million. So there's a lot of money in there between 21 and 463. The biggest of that was Big Fat Greek Wedding, which was made for $6 million and made $380 million. I can't move it.
From the book After Pretty Women.
You're going to read.
People think Hollywood is about money, but to tell the truth, I found again and again it is about the friendships and lasting partnerships you form while working together. Julia, Richard, and I were an unlikely trio in terms of experience, personalities, and interests. There was just something about that time in history and about that movie itself that made the three of us friends forever. We made a pact. If two of us ever got a script they wanted to make, they would have to offer it to the third person first as a nod to the power of our friendship. It would be 10 years before we would all come together again on the set of Runaway Bride. So who were the two and who was the one?
Well, it was getting, people kept saying, when are you going to do Pretty Woman 2? And the thing, we never had a script, we never liked the script, but I guess the turning point was when Richard, you know, he's a Buddhist, and he was in Tibet, and walking in the caves, and the people in the robes, and in the cave, he's walking in the cave, another guy in the robe stops and said, when are you going to do Pretty Woman 2? So Richard said, he called Julie and said, you know, they're driving me crazy in the caves now. But, so then my wife said one day, phone call, it's Julia. I said, well, I'll come and hold on. She said, you better come quick, it's Julia and Richard. That's a power call, Julia and Richard on the phone. And I said, all right, I'll take it, you know. No, and they said they had this script. They didn't want to do Pretty Woman 2. They said, we have the script, Runaway Bride, we both read it, we think we can fix it, and we can do it together, and there's one drawback. And I said, what's the drawback? They said, we have to shoot it in Baltimore. They know I like to shoot around my neighborhood.
Right.
I always wanted to find art near my house, but you can't always do that. But it was a good script, and I said, okay, Baltimore, it's cold, and then Julia, who knows me well, said, get off the phone, let me talk to your wife. And she talked to my wife and said, Barbara, it'll be good, you'll come. And she told, my wife said, you really should do it. And we did Runaway Bride. So that's how projects are made.
And I imagine you would have...
And the guy in the cave, the doctors, they said, not as good as Pretty Woman, but not bad. That's what they told me, Rich.
I remember you telling me that with Valentine's Day, and that shot locally.
Yeah.
And a wonderful joke about Moore Park.
Yes, Moore Park is... Yeah, well, I lived on Moore Park. I lived on Hope, you know, you lived there. And I remember going and seeing that was an art, you know, I daydream. That's why my wife drives a lot. I noticed that Moore Park spelled backwards spells crap room. And I did that joke to Hope, and I don't think he did it, but I did it on Valentine's Day. He got a good man from Hector Elizondo. So you never know when you're going to see a joke. But it's surprising. He got a big laugh in L.A., let me tell you. Somewhere in India, they went, what? What is that thing? But it was close enough.
And when you say Hector delivered it well, Hector Elizondo has been in every single movie you've made, or virtually every movie you've made?
No, I directed. I wrote, I directed 17 movies. Hector was in 17.
Why is he in all 17?
Well, he's very good. People say because he can play so many characters. I said, no, it's because he has so many toupees. You know? I go to his house and he says, what can I play this time? And we go all the toupees and we say, maybe this one here. But he is actually like having another coach on the set. You know, if you're coaching a team, he's another one. He's respected, and you know, if there's trouble or something, somebody's unhappy, you know, I say, Hector, go find out what's bugging them and see if we can fix it.
He's your spy.
Well, a spy, but he solves it sometimes. You know, sometimes he says, I took care of it. And he's like a nice fella, Hector, if you ever meet him. And, you know, he's he's Puerto Rican. But unless he's dating your sister, then he's a Spaniard. He's a Puerto Rican from New York, and he was a drummer. I'm from the Bronx, and we have a similar thing. And we now play senior softball to this day. We're in the same league, no senior softball. Tommy from my softball league is here. Senior softball is great. Yeah, you're old, but it's really nice. If you hit it double, they let you take a nap. It's such a nice thing. And we won the trophy. They don't give you a trophy. If you win the league, they give you Lipitor, free Lipitor. Everybody knows. But I know all things about senior softball because I love it. And I still play.
Not Viagra?
We play together. So it's good to have a friend. I must confess I kind of made nepotism an art form also, but I like to hire people when I get to a set. And sometimes you're working 4 or 5 in the morning. It's nice to have somebody you know a little bit. And like with guys like Tom Hanks and Hector, we always throw the ball on the set. We don't go and run around and do stuff. We toss a ball, and that keeps us a little sane. So Hector's one of my best friends. I don't have too many show business friends, but he's one of them, and he will be in the next movie, whatever I do. He has, his dream is to work on Radford. That's a street by Laurel.
Right, sure.
Because he lives around the corner. He can go to work on his bicycle, right? So he finally got a job on Radford. He's on The Last Man Standing, a nice show, and he's doing good there, and he goes on his bike, saves a lot of gas. So he's a happy man.
You're a happy man. You have a great energy and vitality and youth about you always. Is it the entertainment business that keeps one young? Is it softball that keeps one young? What is it?
I think it's everything. I think one of the keys is working with people that you get to know and you like, and you try to work. Again, I was talking about Pretty Woman. Pretty Woman. One of the people who really helped on Pretty Woman was the film editor. She edited it together, and she's here tonight someplace. Priscilla Nett edited Pretty Woman with Priscilla. Great woman. We saw the outfit. Nice, good. But that's what I mean, she just happened to be. I thought of it. And Charlotte, the guy who wrote an Odd Couple, is here. So it's getting the right people with you. And when the wrong ones, you sometimes have to get rid of them. And the ones that are not so nice, but they do their job, that's what you keep. So I've been fortunate that the people I have gone to lunch with are pretty talented. That has kept me going.
And they have an enormous affection for every single person. Why did you agree to do it? I agreed to do it because Garry asked me to do it.
A lot of the stars said that was very nice. Julia said, Garry and I work every 10 years. Pretty Woman, 10 years later, on Work Right, 10 years later, Valentine's Day. So I can't ask her for another few years, but I'm going to. She's nice. But it is, I have an open set, and I like people to come, and I do a lot of pranks. And I try, actors, it gets boring. And my mother taught me, don't be bored, remember? So I do pranks and we do things. And that night we were so behind. Some days everything goes wrong. And the camera broke and somebody was late on the crew. We couldn't shoot, we couldn't get a piece of equipment. Anyway, I remember saying, I gotta wake everybody up because everybody, and I was the bread. I said, so Richard, she played a prank on you the other day. You banged you banged the little Julie on her hand. And we'll see, and he did, there's that shot. And it was just for the gag. We just put it, and he banged it on the hand, and she laughed, and nobody laughs like Julia Roberts, I gotta tell you that. And I said, fine, good, and then we put it in the gag reel and left it there, but the trailer people found it, and they said, that thing in the gag reel, we like that. I said, it's not in the picture. So you put it in the picture. So we put it in the movie. And it was just, she was just great. And it became like the signature piece in the movie, which all goes to show you, what do I know? Sometimes it just evolves. You gotta be open to changing and seeing something like, you say, Fonzie's very good, you have more to say, you say, ooh, that was a funny shot. Keep that in the movie. So I've always done that, and that has helped me.
Nothing in common about fathers, and you were telling me, we were talking a little bit before we started here, you think you want to do a movie about mothers.
Yeah, mothers, women fascinate me. That's why I did Beaches. I never understood women. You're right about that. In a movie. And then always get a good song. We had a great song in Wind Beneath My Wings. But I wanted to do about, I've done a few too many holidays. I don't necessarily want to do a holiday. I want to do about all the mothers and how there's different types, and it's so modern. Today, some mothers believe in this. You saw the cover of Time magazine, a 4-year-old breastfeeding a stool. Some people said, oh, what is that? Other people went, that's what I think is a good idea. Just keep them happy till college or something. Lunatics are out there. But that's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. yeah, so I hope that we get that going. We're in the process of writing it, putting it together. And it won't have so many stars. I mean, I had so many stars in New Year's Eve. One of the critics wrote, it was like watching a clown car with stars. So it was funny, you know, this is funny review. But I think we'll have less stars and they'll have a little more to do this time. And new projects, I'm always...
Great story about Valentine's Day with Taylor Swift and Taylor Lautner.
They were pretty good. Those, well, you said there's a singer. She's a singer, Taylor Swift. I don't know who that is, but I go to meet. So what am I going to say? She's 19 years old. I'm 107. So look at this combo we made. But you get lucky. And first thing I noticed, I said, you got a 13 around your neck. She said, yes. You should look at people's jewelry. It tells you a lot about what's going on, particularly women. Men's jewelry is a whole other story. But I said, 13, I was born November 13th. This is my lucky number, mine too. So we were friends, and then I asked her what happens, because I'm always interested. That's what I write about. What when you get, life is about coming back. You're going to get whacked down. You got to bounce back. What makes people bounce back and what doesn't? That's what I'm still trying to figure out and discuss it in the book. So I said, so I read, because I read somebody in the paper, something, you had a breakup with a guy in the Johnson brothers, the Jimson, somebody.
Jonas.
There's a J you didn't get along with somewhere. I said, it was, you're through that? She says, and only a 19-year-old can say this. He broke my heart. And I said, so, but you seem peppy. Do you too? After that, she said, I write a song. So she writes, most of the songs come from a sad experience. Now, all of us can't write songs. We can write a poem, or you write about it, or you tell about it, and they come. Lenny Bruce, a long time ago, a wonderful comedian, said, pain plus time equals humor. And a lot of times, if you have pain, if you let go a little bit, you can bring it back to humor. But they were great together. And again, how do you direct? I said, so here's the character. And she said, you know who I liked and this? I said, nice, I'm glad you like people. But tell me, in school, is there a girl you really hated, you didn't like? Or you just, oh yes, Sarah Belvin, whatever her name is. I said, let's do her. Why didn't you like her? And that's what she did, this loud, bouncy girl, and she was terrific. She was very funny. We had a good time.
Why does everybody think you're Jewish?
I don't know that. They say that sometimes. I come from a neighborhood in the Bronx, Italians and Jewish. That's what we were. We were side by side in the neighborhood. And a lot of times there was fighting, but there was no shooting. We didn't shoot in those days. They hit each other. We didn't shoot each other. We didn't have any guns. So there was a thing, and I was kind of unique in my neighborhood, because I lived in the Jewish building, because my mother had to teach in the basement there. And then, but sometimes you walk down the Italian neighborhood and they hit you sometimes. But why would you walk down there, you ask? Right. You ask. And it's because they had Italian ices. We're very good. Beats Italian ices. So I was assigned, when I was little, to go down the villa and take the ices and bring them back, because they wouldn't hit me. My real name, by the way, is Masciarelli. So they knew that. So I went down and I was the go-between there. So that's why they think I'm Jewish, because the sounds of comedy are often Jewish, and I worked with a lot of the comics. And I remember when I came out here, every comedy writer was pretty Jewish, mostly Jewish, except E. Duke Vincent and Garry Marshall. Garry Marshall's real name was Masciarelli, and E. Duke Vincent was Eddie Vermicelli. But E. Duke Vincent, Garry Marshall were big comics.
So who suggested Marshall?
My father changed it.
Okay.
My father, it wasn't good when he was growing up. So he changed it to Marshall. And picture, one of my favorite pictures, Flamingo Kid was the shore, remember they called it the shore. It's written by Neil Marshall and Garry Marshall. No Marshalls. Masciarelli, he was Neil Markowitz. There were no Marshalls. And the whole movie. But that's why, so you can't always believe what's on the screen.
Lady over here.
I wonder if you don't mind talking about your experience on I Love Lucy, because you mentioned it.
Talk about my
Experience on I Love
experience
Lucy.
on, well, the story I mostly talk about in the book, she was terrific in the sense that she liked physical. You know, any writers out here. With Dick Van Dyke, most shows you start with the beginning, you find the ending. With Lucy, you started with the ending. So I had an ending where she was in this formal gown. I wrote it with Jerry Belson, with my partner for many years, and Fred Freeman, who was supposedly wrote for me. So I always had good partners. Another thing that did well. But I wrote this thing where she was in this formal gown on roller skates, and they announced it, and she came rolling in, and she was supposed to almost hit a waiter, and in the rehearsal, she hit the waiter. They timed it wrong, and she whacked right into the waiter, and the food went flying in the air, and there's Lucy lying on the ground with asparagus on her face, and spinach, and I said to Jerry, I said, we just killed Lucy. There it is. That's going to be our reputation in show business. The two guys that killed Lucille Ball on May 10th or whatever. But we went over and we helped her up, and I truly, seriously, I had tears in my eyes. I said, oh my God, what did I do? And she got up and she said, no, it was my fault. I timed it wrong, and just keep writing, let's do it again. So she was a special lady to me, and you know, and it was even a tougher time for her then, because I didn't work with her when she was with Desi. It was after he left, so she was nervous. She was working with kids, and her kids, and you know, she wasn't sure how we were all going to go without Desi. So it was really a great experience. But she was very nice. But you know, you gotta. She once wrote some bad words on a script I wrote, which I discussed in the thing. But that's what you gotta take, that rejection. I remember there's a playwright, Samuel Beckett, who I always thought was interesting. He and I both wrote pieces called Happy Days. But and when they played his play Happy Days in Brooklyn, they played the Happy Days theme song for me in the lobby as you walked in. You went in. That's called marketing, I guess. But Samuel Beckett also wrote that try, fail, fail again, fail better. So every time I tried to fail a little better, and sometimes I failed very well, and we were a hit.
You mentioned that Pretty Woman was dark in the beginning.
Dark.
How did you change that? You wrote Pretty Woman?
No, we rewrote. It was written by Jonathan F. Lawton, a very good writer, but he wrote a different piece than Disney wanted to make. You know, Disney was paying for it. So he wrote a piece about an older prostitute who was on her last legs, and she finally met this guy, and she thought maybe he would like her, and he didn't really, and he dropped her off, and he said, well, here's your money, and she took the money and threw it in his face, and he smacked her and knocked her down in the gutter. And she went up to her apartment, and her roommate had OD'd on drugs. So it was not a snappy ending. So Disney was a little nervous about that. And they had seen me. I mean, Beaches had a very dark ending at one time, and it was a mess, and there was a thing. So we made it a little more about friendship. So we picked it up, and Pretty Woman, we made the prostitute younger. Again, one of the great things that Pretty Woman proved, that you could have a romantic comedy internationally. It seems by some, every country knows what the word hooker means. So starting there was no confusion. What is that? A hedge hunter? What? They don't know what hooker they knew. So it played all over, and that proved that other kind of comedies could play, not just blowing things up. But I think we made the girl younger, and we made it a little happier ending, and truthfully, I didn't have an ending. We went into it, we didn't have really an ending. I was thinking of this and that, and again, sometimes things evolve, and you wait. I don't believe in blocks. You can't in the middle of a movie say, wait, I'm thinking, I'll look at the sky, I'll come up with an idea. You don't work after that. So you got to come up with it. But as you're working, and I felt finally it was a fairy tale, and if you watch the picture, there's a scene that's badly shot. Sometimes I shoot badly, because there was no time to shoot it, so I shot it as they were going to lunch. I handed the cameraman a sandwich, eat this, just shoot. Julia, sit there. And she does this whole speech about, I think I'm in the tower, and somebody's going to come up and save me. And that gave us the ending, that at the end he climbs up. But you get an idea, and then it doesn't work, because you know what messed it up? You couldn't get up the fire escape. It was too high. So we figured out...
Well, he was also scared of heights.
He was just scared of heights. That's why he stayed at the penthouse. And why did he never went out, you know, if you remember the picture. Right. And they said, why do you have the penthouse? He says, because that's the most expensive room. Have to have the most expensive room, you know, I can't look out.
Because it's the best.
I'm afraid of heights, is the truth of that matter.
But he said, because it's the best.
But the thing is, we finally figured out if it rained, he could have an umbrella. And then he could put the umbrella and pull the fire escape down. And that was the whole answer to the ending. So there's always a problem. That's the problem solved. The kind and nice people don't come out much. They stay in the house. No, I think you just gotta hopeful. You just keep trying until at the end of the book, because everybody asks me, what does an actress do? At the end of the book, there's like what's my lucky number is 13. Right. 13 helpful hints at the end of the book what an actress could do. But I said to you, yes, many kind people help me. Joey Bishop brought me to Hollywood, and you know, my sister Penny has always been a help to me. And Penny, I always say this for a minute, Penny, you know, before my sister Penny, they didn't think women directors could make pictures that would reach a mass audience. They thought the studios thought the woman's mind was too small. They thought too small. They said, it was a memo. And that's all Penny had. And the benchmark of a hit picture was made $100 million. So before Penny, no woman director had ever directed a picture that made $100 million. Wow. Penny decided, and she's not a feminist. She said, boys, I'll show them. And she made not one but two pictures, Big with Tom Hanks and League of Their Own, both made over $100 million. And that was the first woman to do that. Not many others have, but she was the first one to do it. So I'm very proud of her. So there are kind people, you just got to meet them. And I don't want to shock you, but sometimes the show business people, including, are a little moody. So, so they're not kind every second. So you got to get them on the kind ride. So it's good if you learn people. You know, the more you know. What was Valentine's Day, right? Shirley MacLaine, a wonderful actress. We're going to get Shirley. Okay, I hear she won't come. I said, she don't want to do it. I said, what's the problem? They said, the money. So I know Shirley. So I say, it's not enough, not this. She won't say. So now I call Shirley, and I said, Shirley, you know, I know you a little bit. Is there something... tell me the figure that you really like. Now, she has lucky numbers. So I think it was something, $300,000. She wanted $363. That's what she wanted, $363.17. That's what she wanted. I said, offer her this. And they said, what? Shirley signed. I get the message. So you got to know the people. So you gotta know when they're kind, and you can see if you're rude, they don't pay attention. But I'm sure if you keep trying, I truly believe, sincerely, talent will out. And if it's to be, it will be.
There's this phrase I like, talent tells.
There's a guy on Broadway now you've never heard of. His name is James, what's his name? Conlon or something. He's a British guy. He's killingly funny. Nobody knows who he is. He's going to be coming up soon because nobody heard of him. He did this play in London and they brought it here. Not heralded. What a great play! And it's all slapstick and everything, but he's going to work. So sometimes talent will be found in a play or whatever. I suggest plays because you go to a 2-minute audition, they say very nice, but if they see you in a play, you're on the stage 2 hours. They can get to see you. Can I have a trivia question. What was the play in the Winter Garden Theater in New York City on Broadway before Cats? Does anybody know? I'll tell you, I wrote it. It was called The Roast. I wrote it with Jerry Bells. The Roast lasted 3 nights. Cats ran 18 years. So that's, but they said I helped Cats. They said, you helped Cats, you lowered the bar. So you never know when you help somebody. But I'm just saying how much rejection comes and how much it spins ahead. I'm sorry, there's another question.
When you first get a script, what is that pre-production kind of envisioning work that you do before production? How do you approach a screenplay in that case?
Well, a lot of times I read them. I don't write them. But I read things that I relate to, and when I try to, which I have written screenplays, I wrote a lot of television shows. But you try to, if they always said if you use your imagination, you'll be selling shoes in 2 weeks. So you have to think about your own life. When I wrote on the Dick Van Dyke Show, I wrote jokes and everything, but then you had to write stories. So on Dick Van Dyke, we didn't just came up with imagination. We all sat there. Carl Reiner made us. There were 4 or 5 writers. And he just said, what did you do embarrassing today? What did you do stupid? And we would tell the stories. And first you want to be cool, but again, you can't get an idea being cool. So you had to talk. And I remember my mother who had a lot of, my mother taught us sarcasm was another thing. She would say, and it hurt, but she would say, Garry is celebrating, when it was 11, Garry is celebrating 11 years of being round-shouldered. He's terrific. And then she said, Penny, a lovely girl, today we're going to practice opening Coke bottles on Penny's teeth, because she had an open mic. So she was always doing that. But I learned, and I would cry. We all cried. But once she said, I went to the beach, and she said, look at all the moles you got on your back. If I connected them with a pencil, I'll get a picture. And I never took my shirt off at the beach for 2 years. Because I didn't want it. But then as time passed, I wrote that episode for the Dick Van Dyke Show, where they connected the dots on Rob Petry's back, and he went to Believe It or Not. And it was a whole... Jerry Buzz and I always wanted to write the waiting room at Believe It or Not. All the people with a potato shaped like a duck, the guy who walked on his hands from Buffalo. We had a lot of that. We loved that show. But I guess part of the thing is to get ideas, and then sometimes your vision is cockeyed. Unexpected. That's what we look for, surprise, unexpected. I did a show called Joni Loves Chachi, right? And spinning off, we were spinning. So Joni Loves Chachi was not the greatest show, but it killed people in Korea. It was the biggest hit in Korea. And then we found out why. In Korean, Chachi means penis. So, Joni Loves Chachi. Let's watch that show. Hurry up, turn. All of it, turning on sex. So you gotta look for the unexpected. Oh, it's true. If you look for the unexpected, did, and that gives you a surprise.
All right, our last question for Garry Marshall.
On a TV show where you critique with Carrie Fisher, directors. They would do these shorts, and then I guess the prize was they would make a film for Steven Spielberg.
It's called On the Lot.
On the lot,
Whatever
yes.
happened? I was addicted to that show, and I thought it was spectacular. Whatever happened?
It was a show where people brought their films and the shorts, and we gave them advice, a couple of Carrie Fisher and other directors. And well, what happened, they wanted us to be meaner and to fight more, and the whole, Simon Cowell, you gotta do this. Now Howard Stern is doing it, a friend. So I wasn't, I didn't want to do mean, so I guess Spielberg wanted to make the show. I know him. We're friends, and we don't hang out.
Sure.
But look, don't ask me. I got a script for Spielberg. I don't know him like that. But he tried, and they had a winner, but they just didn't. It was too unique. The audiences were too. There wasn't enough people who were interested in films. I guess that was part of it. But is that the last question? Could I say a few? Thank you, Sam.
Well, thank you.
Rubin, wonderful man. And one story I tell that is true. We're very nice. Somebody said a nice speech. I've been blessed. I've done very well, but it's never perfect, and you're always got to be ready to. You don't want to be too a big shot. And I've been very fortunate that I've always let it somehow somebody let me know. And it was a wonderful comedian named Marty Short who had a Broadway show. Right, this 2 years ago, something, and I called him. I wanted to go to the show, and I called up. I said, Marty, listen, can I come Wednesday night? Can you help me get a ticket Wednesday night to your show? I want to see it. And he said, hey, in the show, it's a Broadway show. He says, I bring a celebrity up from the audience, and you come into my skit. I put you in the skit. And he said, you could be the person. And I said, Marty, no, I think really you could get a bigger celebrity than me. And he said, not on a Wednesday. Jay Leno, Jerry Seinfeld did Saturday. I'm a Wednesday. Thank you. So many people stuck up to me on Wednesday.